When we try to figure out where modern economics actually came from, who's the first person that pops into your head? Probably Adam Smith, right? Or maybe the critiques of Karl Marx. If you really dug into the archives, you might throw in some ancient Greeks. But here's the thing. There's a massive, gaping blind spot in Western history books. Nearly 1,000 years before anyone wrote The Wealth of Nations, and centuries before the first central bank opened its doors, a genius in the East was already diagnosing the fatal flaw of financial systems. He wasn't just guessing. He laid out a thesis that is terrifyingly relevant today. That an economy divorced from ethics isn't just unfair, it's a ticking time bomb. Looking at the mess of our current global financial landscape, his medieval diagnosis stops feeling like dusty history and starts looking a lot like a prophecy we ignored. Welcome back to the Global Financial Historian. Today, we're digging up the past to understand the real mechanics of power and money. To really get what this guy, Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, was seeing, we need to set the scene. You have to visualize the world map in the 11th and 12th centuries. It's a tale of two worlds. Over in Europe, they're still wading through the mud of the feudal Dark Ages, struggling to get by. But pan over to the Islamic world, and it's an economic supernova. From the bustling markets of Baghdad to the libraries of Nishapur, this region was the absolute center of the world. We're talking about gold dinars flowing through complex banking networks that would make the Medici jealous. Trade routes were connecting continents like a medieval internet. Fortunes were being made that would rival modern billionaires. But, and there's always a but, this explosion of cash brought a shadow with it. A spiritual and social rot was starting to eat away at the foundations. Enter Al-Ghazali. Born in Persia in 1058, this guy wasn't just some preacher. He was a supreme intellectual heavyweight. He mastered law, philosophy, logic, you name it. By his early 30s, he was sitting at the very top of the academic world in Baghdad. He had the prestige, the tenure, the respect, but he wasn't seduced by the golden age around him. In fact, he became its loudest critic. He looked around and saw a civilization that was technically advancing. Better buildings, finer silks, more coins, but morally, it was going backward. He saw a marketplace overflowing with goods, but starving for integrity. Does that picture look uncomfortably familiar to anyone living in the 21st century? Al-Ghazali asked a question that was dangerous then, and frankly, is still dangerous now. Can a society survive if its wallet grows faster than its wisdom? To answer that, he decided to take apart the very concept of money itself. And this is where he was centuries ahead of the curve. While other thinkers just saw money as a physical object, a gold coin is a gold coin. Al-Ghazali looked at it as a social contract. He analyzed the psychology of exchange. He wanted to know how monetary systems mess with human character and eventually break nations. His theory starts with this incredibly beautiful metaphor. He said, money is like a mirror. Think about it. A mirror doesn't have a color of its own, right? But it reflects every color you put in front of it. Al-Ghazali argued money is the same. It has no intrinsic use. You can't eat gold. You can't wear a silver coin to keep warm. But it helps you get everything that is useful. It's a bridge between human needs. He argued that money was designed to facilitate fair exchange. And as long as it does that, society wins. This definition led him to a fierce attack on hoarding. In Al-Ghazali's playbook, taking money out of circulation wasn't just greedy. It was a crime against the community. He used a biological analogy. Currency is like blood. It has to flow. If it stops flowing, the body dies. When the wealthy lock their fortunes in vaults or bury it in the backyard, they are effectively strangling the economy. They create an artificial blockage that stops resources from reaching the people who actually build, work, and create. He didn't just view this as a sin. He viewed it as economic suicide. It distorts value and paralyzes trade. From there, he went after market speculators. And honestly, he had zero patience for people who gamed the system. Al-Ghazali argued that profit should be a reward for two things: risk and labor, not for manipulating volatility. He specifically attacked the practice of creating artificial shortages to jack up prices, what we'd call cornering the market. He called this eating the wealth of others without giving anything back. His point was simple: if you make money off someone else's misery, you are injecting poison into the market. Why? Because it destroys the one thing commerce actually runs on: trust. Now let's be clear here. Al-Ghazali wasn't anti-capitalist. He wasn't a socialist before his time. And he wasn't some monk telling everyone to live in poverty. He actually praised honest merchants. He saw trade as a noble thing that glued society together. His war was against deception, counterfeiting, hiding defects, fraud. He understood a concept that modern game theorists call repeated games. Basically, trade only works long-term if both sides believe they aren't getting ripped off. Once that faith evaporates, the whole machine seizes up. He also championed the dignity of the grind. He believed that wealth made through building things or providing services builds character. Wealth made through gambling or usury, that corrupts the soul. It's pragmatic logic. Nations are built by makers and doers, not by schemers and hoarders. But perhaps his scariest warning was directed at the government. Al-Ghazali was a harsh critic of currency debasement. Back then, sultans loved to mix cheap base metals into gold coins to fund their wars or their lavish lifestyles. It was the medieval version of the money printer. Al-Ghazali called it out for what it was. He realized that when a ruler messes with the currency, they are effectively taxing you in secret. It destroys the standard of value. And who does it hurt the most? The poor. He argued that a ruler's #1 economic job is to protect the integrity of the money, not to weaponize it because they're short on cash. The parallels to our modern world are vivid. Al-Ghazali wasn't theorizing in a vacuum. He was watching empires crumble in real time. He saw a pattern. Whenever political legitimacy started to fade, rulers tried to cheat the laws of economics. They printed money, or clipped coins. They squeezed the merchants, and they protected the elite while throwing the common good under the bus. Al-Ghazali saw that these weren't solutions, they were gasoline on the fire. He basically outlined a trickle-down theory of corruption. Think of it like a domino effect. If the head of state has no integrity, the bureaucracy gets corrupt. If the officials are corrupt, the merchants stop playing fair. If the merchants cheat, the regular guy on the street loses hope and stops following the law. It creates a feedback loop of cynicism. His ultimate conclusion? A civilization can survive being poor, but it cannot survive being unjust. Financial ruin is rarely just about the math. It's about the erosion of the social capital that holds a nation together. This connects directly to his view on money stability. For Al-Ghazali, a coin's value was backed by the honor of the issuer. Debasing that coin was a breach of a promise. He predicted that if a government destroys trust in its own money, people will dump it for something they can trust, foreign coins or commodities. We've seen this movie 100 times since then, from the hyperinflation of the 1920s to the currency crises we see in the news today. Money is a shared belief. When the state breaks that belief, the economy evaporates. But here's where he goes deeper than most modern economists. He went straight to the human heart. Al-Ghazali understood that economic systems are driven by raw human impulses: fear, greed, and ego. People hoard because they're scared. They cheat because they're greedy. They manipulate the system because they don't have a moral compass. Therefore, you can't write laws to create prosperity if you don't cultivate morality. Unless the incentives of a society actually reward honesty and contribution, the natural drift of the economy will always be toward exploitation and ruin. This is why he insisted that wealth has to carry a social obligation. Accumulation without distribution is a cancer. He believed a healthy society balances the drive for profit with a duty of care. When the rich detach themselves from the fate of the poor, when finance becomes a game of extracting wealth rather than creating it, the structure becomes unstable. A civilization that serves only the few will eventually be destroyed by the many, or it'll just collapse under its own hollowness. And that brings us to right now. 9 centuries later, looking into the mirror Al-Ghazali held up. We live in a world where capital flows instantly across the globe, yet inequality is staggering. We see stock markets celebrating speculative bubbles while the real economy struggles to breathe. We see a global crisis of trust in central banks and politicians. We see the very currency debasement and inflation he warned against quietly eating away at the savings of the working class. Al-Ghazali's critique of hoarding, speculation, and state corruption reads like it was written this morning. From the housing crisis to the debates over fiat currency versus crypto. The technology has changed. We have algorithms instead of abacuses, but the software of human nature, that hasn't changed a bit. If Al-Ghazali looked at our debt-fueled growth, our volatile markets, and our fractured societies, he would likely repeat his timeless warning. Corruption is the disease, and justice is the only cure. It is a sobering realization. Economic resilience isn't just about GDP numbers or interest rates. It's about whether you can trust your neighbor, whether contracts actually mean something, and whether the system is rigged. It is human behavior, not spreadsheets, that dictates the rise and fall of empires. Al-Ghazali wasn't just teaching theology, he was teaching systems thinking. He grasped what modern finance often forgets. Money is a moral construct. If you shatter the moral foundation, the financial superstructure is going to come down. That is why his work is essential reading today. In a time of massive economic uncertainty, his message is a survival guide. Decouple money from morality at your own peril. Understanding this history isn't just academic, it's armor for the future. Because while the details of history change, the lessons are ruthless to those who ignore them. If this gave you a new way of seeing the value in your pocket, hit that subscribe button. The past holds the keys. You just need to know where to look.